Let me go to a conversation which I started the morning out with. It was that leaked audio of Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, because the return to office battle between workers and bosses, it's turned heated at times. Some companies have blundered in their push to get workers back into the office in person. Even the executives of one of the world's biggest banks finding it tough to convince people to get back to work. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, he made his stance on working 5 days in the office quite clear. Employees shouldn't mess around with him. He's trying to get them to change their minds when it comes to working full-time. He called a town hall meeting. 1,200 JP Morgan employees signing a petition venting their spleen against a 5-day work week. And Jamie Dimon, as CEO of probably the world's biggest and most important bank, says, you come back to work. This is some of that audio from that town hall meeting.
A lot of you were on the Zoom and you were doing the following, okay? Looking at your mail, sending texts to each other about what asshole the other person is, okay? Not paying attention, not reading your stuff, and if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness and stuff, it does, okay? And when I found out that people are doing that, you don't do that in my goddamn meetings, and I've had it with this kind of stuff. And, I come in, I've been working 7 days a goddamn week since COVID, and I come in and where's everybody else? But they're here and there, and the Zooms don't show up, and people say they didn't get stuff. So that's not how you run a great company. We didn't build this great company by doing that, by doing the same semi-disease shit that everybody else does.
Karen Lowe is the executive director of the 4-day week campaign here in South Africa. Karen, I'm going to admit that on the substantive facts which Jamie Dimon puts forward about stifling creativity, lack of productivity, interpersonal relations, and an office culture, I'm going to agree with him there. What I don't necessarily agree with is the tone and style of how this message was conveyed. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the argument which company CEOs put forward. It's often in that tone and style that could receive the pushback. Your thoughts on Jamie Dimon's, that was only 45 seconds of what was an hour-long town hall where he went off on workers saying, get back to work.
Good morning, Lester. I must admit, he does need a course on communication skills. It's rather alarming that those words, delightful swear words, are used, to communicate what seems to be the need for control. And I'm going to disagree with you, Lester, because whilst I agree with some of his points, and I do think there's huge benefits to having interpersonal connection with the workforce, and talent can be mentored, young talent can be mentored. There is no scientific evidence that has been presented to date. There's no extensive data that has been presented to date that shows that this return to office significantly improves productivity and financial performance. There is nothing. There is so much evidence on flexible work arrangements, how it improves productivity, how it improves your talent retention and management, how it reduces burnout, it reduces staff attrition, it improves innovation, it improves inclusiveness in the workplace. But this is bluster. And I'm wondering, and maybe Lester, you have some opinions on this, but I'm really wondering if there are some hidden agendas that are not being openly spoken about by these leaders.
What would be some of those hidden agendas?
Well, think about how much money they spent on building.
Oh, of course, yes. It's empty buildings mean that they've spent money on rentals and leases that aren't being utilized. So they want a return on that investment.
Absolutely. The second is, what if they want to get rid of headcounts and they've got bloated payrolls? So one great way to reduce costs is to get rid of staff. The problem with return to office mandates is you often get rid of your high-performing staff, not your low-performing staff. And I think, I think there's another side to this. I mean, JP Morgan is a listed company, as are many of the other organizations that have sort of said the return to office mandate. Amazon was one of them. I mean, you could see the pushback they got. I'm wondering, from a comms perspective, if this isn't a signal to shareholders that we're taking a hard line and a hard stance on financial performance and return on investments. But if you look at all of the research, and you look at all of the research around flexible working arrangements, on the contrary, on the other side, there just is nothing that's got any substantive facts around, well, it improves efficiencies and productivity. So his stance could have been, well, my employees that actually are working well from home, I want to see a 10% increase in efficiency across the board. Why doesn't he try it that way around? Do we need to really force everyone back to the office, increase commutes, affect inclusivity within the workplace with the working moms now needing to scramble to cover childcare? But if you focus in on where you can unpack the value that is derived from flexible work options, he would have been able to put a much better debate forward, because you would lean into the science and the evidence that is highly published. Yeah. On the other side, there just isn't. What he's done here is he has adversely affected employee sentiment and a notable deterioration in job satisfaction and work-life balance. So let's then
talk about employee retention. JP Morgan Chase, one of the most prestigious banks, and I'm sure with one of the most prestigious paychecks when it comes to the financial sector. If you're a broker, an analyst, a data scientist, does that alone keep you at a company? Or is it about other things? Is it about the flexibility to say, you know what, I'm working Friday from home, my data analyst job? Does this mean that even if your company is JP Morgan Chase, you're going to struggle to retain people if we go back to the old way, pre-pandemic way of thinking?
There's so much research to support that exact position, Lester. And if you look at the financial services industry overall, it's going through a period of disruption. Even in South Africa, have a look at the gains the Time Bank is making in South Africa without having that sort of retail banking footprint. Where does the innovation come from? Highly skilled individuals that are driving innovation and future performance within the financial services
sector. You're saying
the hardest talent pool to attract
so you're
and
saying
retain.
that someone would rather, if you're in the financial services sector, if you're a broker, analyst, you'd rather work for an online digital bank than the top 4 bank in South Africa if the digital bank has a more flexible working arrangement?
Absolutely. Our research is showing that flexible work arrangements actually are more highly valued than financial remuneration. So I think you're going to see a massive shift in attrition. And they're going to lose their top performers, their top talent. Because, Lester, I mean, just because you're working in an office, a lot of these guys, the analysts, the software engineers, all of those highly skilled people, they're doing their work behind a screen. Yeah. Are you telling me that they're going to do their work behind the screen better at the office than they are at home?
Not the most friendliest and forthcoming and open people in the office if they're glued to their screen generally. But Karen Lowe, really appreciate your time, Executive Director of the 4-Day Week campaign here in South Africa. Listen, I've worked from home for the past 4 years. My productivity has skyrocketed and my sanity has been restored, and I will definitely never work in the office again. My boss trusts me to do my work because I deliver. I'm accessible during work hours. Even though I work in a onesie occasionally, I always rack up Teams meetings prepared. I'm looking professional. There will always be people who take the mickey and who don't deliver when working from home. But for those of us who don't, let us work from home.